I'm Zarek Boyd. I have the awesome honor and privilege of planting a church with my husband Damien in one of the most historic, beautiful, yet under-resourced communities in Atlanta, Georgia. That church is Vertical Church. We've had just a beautiful journey of learning what we did not already know and using what God has called us to be to influence and impact the community in an amazing way. We actually are reaching one of the toughest communities in Atlanta, Georgia, and have seen God do amazing things at Vertical Church. I also serve as president and chief learning officer of Max Life, Inc. And Max Life is a strategic solutions company that empowers leaders and leadership teams to pursue significance. So I've had the beautiful opportunity of working with entertainment companies, medical institutions, school districts, churches, denominations, church planning organizations, and sports teams, and to walk them through navigating change within their team, within their staff, within their organization, and also within their community. So I have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of navigating change as leaders. And that's what I want to focus our time on, is how do you as a leader holistically and effectively navigate change? So I want to just talk about 5 different perspectives, or what I call lenses, that help you to do that effectively. And it kind of reminds me of this amazing smartphone that I just heard about that's kind of on the market now, and it has 16 different lenses to capture the best picture. So it's not this bulky, professional, expensive piece of equipment. It's something that is slim, compact, and is designed to capture as many scenarios and capture as many possibilities as possible in one snapshot. And that's what I believe leaders need to be able to do, is to take multiple perspectives and capture it in such a way that you have what you need to move forward in this whole idea of transformation and this whole idea of change. And so the first lens is the planned lens, and that's kind of one of my favorite ones. As a certified strategic planner, I love working with organizations to develop their values, to develop their mission statement, to develop what their preferred future is, and to develop their strategy. And for many, that whole activity is in this whole idea of strategic planning and creating either prospectus or creating a strategic plan, so that it is something that's clean and clear to move directionally forward. And so this step-by-step process is characteristic of this planned lens. But I also know, through working with organizations and churches for over 15 years, that those plans sometimes don't really work out. And so my question to you as a leader is that as you proactively develop plans, do you leave space for the emerging possibilities that will be before you? And that leads us to our second lens, and that's the adaptive lens. This whole idea of change that is really more unplanned. It's the natural progression of how things work. So one of the core activities of the adaptive lens is this idea of organic strategy. A lot of people are like, what do you mean organic strategy? But it's looking at strategy as emergent, So a lot of experimentation, a lot of informal networks, a lot of seeing the opportunities and the possibilities, and seizing those opportunities and possibilities without coming with your game plan already in place and stamped and established. And we've seen that in Vertical Church in our early days of working with organizations and working with schools, and really asking the question and taking a listening and learning posture versus, hey, we have our plan, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but taking a different approach and saying, what it is do you need as an organization? And I remember working with one of the schools in our community, one of the schools that really is great need, but doing great work, K through 8 school, actually a K through 12 school, and asking the question of what do you need? And so we initially thought we were going to meet in this particular school, but we ended up finding out that they needed something that was greater than our need. They needed something that was greater than our need. And we found out that their library was about 20% full. And so we were like, even though we may not meet here, and we never have over the last 5 years of working with this particular school, but being able to seize an opportunity, we were able to collect over 2,500 books for this library, working with other organizations and churches and ministries and individuals to fill a need. And so taking strategy as emergent was vital for navigating change. So that's the second lens, the adaptive lens. The third lens is this whole idea of life cycle. So the life cycle lens, looking at change from a very rational, step-by-step approach, but looking at it from stages. So you hear, stage 1 is the conception, stage 2 is the birth, stage 3 is the growth, stage 4 is the maturation. People have different words for those various stages, but as a leader, knowing what particular stage you're in and being open to really identify the context in which you're in, and not just the stage or not just what people say you need to do at a particular stage. And we find this in a lot of times in hiring. So a lot of the people development activity, hiring, training, developing people, but hiring is really interesting because a lot of people tell you when you think about change and you reach a particular growth in your organization and in your church that you needed to hire, for instance, a worship leader. That's your first hire, but depending on your context and depending on your particular focus, you may need to hire a community engagement person instead of a worship leader. So being very sensitive to the stage of development and your particular context as a leader as you navigate change. So that's the third lens, the life cycle lens. The fourth lens is the cultural lens. This is the one that kind of trips people up a lot of times. This is the type of change that's a lot of times unmanageable, sometimes dynamic, sometimes even irrational. This is what I call the iceberg. So you see a lot of stuff on the surface, but typically what's beneath the surface is what can either help support the change, it can help stall the change, or it can help create dysfunction in that particular change effort. And so as leaders, we really need to be considerate about those who are around the table. What are the patterns? What are the behaviors? What are the languages? What are the ethnicities? What are the thinking patterns of the leader, of the organization, and even the community, so that you're able to navigate change effectively. So that's the fourth lens. The fifth lens is called the dialectical lens. I know it's an interesting word, but the dialectical lens, and I think this is vital and a lot of times missed when you think about change. And this is the type of change where you have two viewpoints that are kind of happening simultaneously, but they're opposing viewpoints. And so kind of things seem like they're going good, and then there's a moment where there's like a revolution, there's an explosion because those two viewpoints collide. You see this a lot of times when you see those who are marginalized. When you see those that are marginalized. So you have those that are empowered, they have privilege, and then you see those who may not have a voice. And so when you think about leadership and you think about navigating change, who are the people in your context that don't have a voice? How do you elevate those individuals and their voice to ensure that you have more of a holistic picture of what you're facing related to change and how you're going to navigate change? So elevating the voice of those who are marginalized and may be overlooked. And that takes some time and it takes sensitivity as a leader, but it's critical in order to see the best picture of change that you need to have and how you navigate as a leader. So those are the five lenses. You have first the plan lens, which is very, very popular. People use that particular lens a great deal. The adaptive lens is a little more mysterious, a little bit kind of, you don't have as much control, but taking that listening posture as a leader. The third is the life cycle, looking at the stages of development in your organization. The fourth is the cultural lens, and that's making sure that you have a good grasp, a good take on the iceberg, what's beneath the surface, what's happening beneath the surface. And then you have that fifth lens, the dialectical lens. How do I elevate the voice of those who may be voiceless in my context? God is the only one who is constant. Everything else changes. And so as leaders, we have to be very intentional about navigating change. And if you do that and you take that multi-lens approach, I believe God can do great things through you.